Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin wa afdalus salati wa atamu taslim ala Sayyidina Muhammad Rasulihil Kareem wa sahbihi min al-abadi wa shafi'il halaki wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Allahumma faqihna fi din wa alimna tawil wa ja'alna khayran Sayyidina Muhammad alayhi afdalus salati wa atamu taslim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Okay, because we're moving on to these kind of topics that people seem to be really interested in. Although, let's be honest with you, I mean, all of this stuff is good to know. I suppose it's reminders, but you're not going to really be questioned on, I suppose, this kind of stuff. But it's good to know how you're going to be questioned, etc. No, I know it's boring, but fiqh, etc. In your mind, that's the more important stuff. But this would, I suppose, spice it up a bit. So, because, like I said, it's a topic that people are quite interested in, and what happens is you get a lot of questions on it as well. So I'll have my phone available if those watching online, because I send it to quite a few groups. If those watching online have any questions, they can always put it on the group WhatsApp, and I'll try to answer the questions as we go along. Okay, so just a quick recap then, what we're doing. This first part of this module is about the journey of the soul. So what have we done? We've gone through the journey of the soul, which is this. And we've covered the first two, the first two parts of the journey. The Al-Wa, where we speak about the soul itself and how all the souls were gathered, and the Dunya, which we're in now, and the different stages that, well, not necessarily everyone's going to go through, but generally speaking, that's the stages that a person can possibly go through. Okay? So we covered that. And last week, it was almost like you can say it falls under dunya, because we didn't really kind of talk about death, but we spoke about leading up to death and the remembrance of death. I think I was trying to stress on the fact that we should be remembering death, and that's very important. Okay, and we spoke about that. And today, inshallah, we're going to talk about barzakh and the life of the grave. So it's called the realm of the grave. It's called the realm of the horn, the trumpet as well. But the life of the grave. So inshallah, we'll cover that. Just quickly then, I want to kind of read out a bit leading from death before we kind of move on. Is that, so the journey of the soul then, the angel of death will take you who has been entrusted with you, then to your Lord you will be returned. Death is the first part. Death is the first part of the journey from this life to the hereafter. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "The grave is first abode of the hereafter. If one passes through it safely, what follows it will be easier. If not, then that which it follows will be more terrifying." It's very important, actually. Sayyidina Uthman, the third Khalifa, used to weep when remembering or talking about the grave, because let's be honest, that's your first real test. If you're successful in that, everything else after that will become easier for you. If you fail in that, everything else is going to become difficult for you. I think it's a valid question. Person can ask that. Well, if you're successful in the grave, does that mean you're going to Jannah? If you're not successful in the grave, does that mean you're going to hell? If you're successful in the grave, then yes, highly likely is that you will going to Jannah. But again, you will still be held accountable for everything. So when you talk about judgment day and the hisab and everything, that still will take place. If you're unsuccessful, the questioning and the grave atonement, now the hope is still that, look, eventually all Muslims will go to Jannah. Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam will intercede, and then Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala will say, now, we'll cover all that part in when we go over Judgment Day. So that's the hope we kind of cling on to. Okay. The dying may be subject to various kinds of temptation, and may God protect us, and it is therefore recommended that people who are present recite Quran in abundance and mention hadiths which condemn the things of the world. It has been related that Satan, may God curse him, is nearest to the servant at the time of death, eager to tempt him, but that his power is only over those who, this is from the Quran, his power is only over those who take him for an ally, and those who commit association. As for people of faith, God confirms those who believe with the firm saying in the life of the world and in the hereafter. God sends unjust astray, and God does as he wills. Now, I think I've mentioned this story again. I'm going to say it again. I think it's Imam Razi. This story took place. He had the proof of existence of God, 1,000 proofs of the existence of God. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He was once, at those times, now it's celebrities and footballers, etc. The others, so footballers, film stars, etc. They're the celebrities. At those times, the ulama, the scholars, were the celebrities. So when they go to certain places, everyone would come to see them. In the olden times, the way they used to relay a talk or speech, they had people. So you had, thousands and thousands of people will attend, but there was no microphones, etc. Big speakers. They would have people sitting at certain points, and they would relay. So these students sitting in certain points, they would relay the message that's being said. So imagine that you travel so far, you sit amongst thousands of people, you can't even hear the sheikh. But this was the dedication of people. They were just listening to a student or what the sheikh was saying. Okay, so Mawlazi turned to Baghdadi and all these people came to see him. Everyone came to see him, and there was a lot of rush, and there was an old lady there. There's an old lady there, and she goes, "What's all this rush? I'm trying to buy my shopping." And one of the students or people are going, "Oh, old woman, you silly woman, you don't even know who this is. Razi, he's got 1,000 proofs of the existence of God." She goes, he only got 1,000 proofs because he's got 1,000 doubts. That's why they say have iman or like a old woman. Like we get all this sophisticated. I want proof of God. I want to know this and why is this possible? And I have doubts and atheists. But yes, the old woman. I remember my teacher used to mention about his grandmother. To ask him that, do you believe in God? Yeah. Why? Well, someone has to make the sun rise in the morning. It's a ridiculous proof. What's ridiculous is that basically someone will come along and say, "What about this?" and bring in science and all that. But for her, that's enough. And whenever I've gone through these modules and I've gone through theology, I've stressed on one point. You only need to know as much as you personally need to know, in the sense that how much doubt you have. The information I'm giving you is not for you to then go out and start debating. The information I'm giving you is that if for some reason someone asks you a question or comes across about something, because we are living in a very fitna world now, you shouldn't have doubt. You should know in your mind, "No, I remember covering this in lesson, and this is the thing behind it." People will confuse a lot of those that don't understand. They'll come up with something ridiculous and stupid, but people don't know how to handle that. Okay, they'll put doubts in their mind. That was the purpose of me, what I'm doing. But really speaking, if your mind is free, look, I believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I don't need any proof. That's the best. You won't have any doubt ever. I can turn around and come out with all this, and then some clever clogs will come along and say, "Well, what about this?" I think, okay. That's what I'm leading to, because Imam Razi I'm going to miss out the part where about his sheikh and etc. Because I've already mentioned it, because I want to cover off. There's a lot to cover off today in the Barzakh, and I don't think I'll probably cover it all off. If not, we'll cover it off to next week. But generally speaking, he went to the sheikh. I'll summarize it, and because he realized that this guy is special. And the sheikh was making him read certain things, and steam was coming out of his ears. And he goes, "What's happening to me?" He goes, "What's the word you gave me?" The steam's coming out of my ears. He says, "I'm removing all the knowledge you got inside you." He goes, "You all know what you're doing." He left him. He went off to his homeland. He left him. So he's on his deathbed here. But in his deathbed, and the shaitan comes to visit him. So the shaitan comes, like I said, the shaitan is the closest to the one that's passing away. And the shaitan comes and says, "Oh, so you're the one that's got proof of, of existence of God, 1,000 proofs of existence of God." He says, "Yeah." He goes, "Come on then, let's hear." Don't forget, shaitan is very clever. Okay, the shaitan has done so much ibadat. They say that there's not a single area on earth that the shaitan hasn't done ibadat, because he was here for years and years doing ibadat. He was then honored because of how much he used to do and all that, and he was then taken amongst the angels. was unheard of, a jinn kind of taken amongst the angels. This is how much he was honored. Okay, but then that kind of, the fact that he was a jinn and he had free will, that was his downfall, because he did not accept or go to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the shaitan comes in and he says, okay, so let's hear the proofs then. So he starts off with number 1, he refutes it. 2, refutes it. Carries on 10, 20, 100, 200, 999, refutes it again. And last proof, this was, Imam was a big figure, right? On his deathbed, and last proof of the existence of God. So he tells 1,000th proof. Shaitan refutes it. He says, now what then? You said you had 1,000 proofs. I've basically refuted all of them. So what then now? God does not exist. At that point, his sheikh that he left in a kind of a fit, he was doing wudu. And what you can understand is how do you find these things out? You find these things out later, because what was happening, he was doing wudu and he does something and his students notice him doing something, and then they relay, oh, he did something, and then they link it back to something's happened there. And, that's how, because you think, well, how did he know? There's no internet and there's no videos made, so how do you know this happened? So the sheikh's doing wudu, and at that point, the sheikh just has some water and he throws the water at the wall. And that water hits Ahmad in his face. And he says, oh, my son, tell him that I don't need any proof for the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why he says, I don't need any proof for the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. He passes away. Okay. As we say, have iman like an old lady. Okay. Don't try to be too clever. We're awesome at kind of getting into these discussions and arguments, etc. You're just going to get yourself tangled up. All that's going to happen, someone's going to come who can kind of word things better than you, and they'll just kind of show you up, and then that's it. Let's worry about ourselves before we try to convert the entire nation into Muslims. Yeah. Okay. So death and the visit of the angels. As for those who say our Lord is Allah, then continue in the right way. The angels descend upon them, saying, fear not, nor be grieved, and receive good news of the garden which you were promised. We are your guardians in this world's life and in the hereafter. And you shall have therein what your souls desire, and you shall have therein what you ask for, a provision from the forgiving, the merciful. The angels of Allah descend upon the believers, the time of the death in their graves and the resurrection, to bring about tranquility and security from them for the torment of the hereafter. So Imam Ghazali, I probably won't get time today, but I want to kind of read out parts of Imam Ghazali's book. So this is, I know I must have shown you, this is the book of Imam Ghazali, Remembrance of Death, very good. Any book of Imam Ghazali is awesome. Okay. But so if you get them, because mashallah, they've gone through, there's quite a few of these series translations. It is quite difficult, if I'm honest with you, because they use a lot of words, etc. But I still would recommend, you got to challenge yourself. Come on, let's go past the nursery rhymes, etc. Challenge yourself and read something good. So look at this, the so-called English expert. Get the book. Let's see if you can find any mistakes in that. Okay. So Imam Ghazali, the angel of death, advanced farther and met with a believer whom he greeted. The believer returned his greeting. He said, I have got something to tell you in secret. The believer consented to hear. At this, the angel of death said, I am the angel of death. The believer said, welcome to you. I am waiting for you for long. By God, there is nothing dearer to me than my meeting with you. The angel of death said, fulfill your needs. The believer said, there is nothing dearer to me at this moment than meeting with my Lord. The angel said, choose in what way I can take your life. The believer said, let me pray after ablution and take my life while I'm in prostration. Subhanallah. The angel of death took his life in Subhanallah. This is how you should be as a believer. So it mentioned that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves to meet those that want to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. and it detests to meet those that don't want to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the fact that you don't want to see this believers there, you know, he's happy at the fact that the angel of death has come and his time has come, and he's been honored by giving the choice of how do you want me to take your life. And the best way is you're the closest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Closest in the sense that, you know, obviously not in this device, but you know, we mentioned that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is closer than your jugular vein. You're closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when you're in sajda. In sujood, you're closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you genuinely want to go into sujood, you know, humble yourself. Just want to make sure it's not a question. Okay. So that's when you're closest, and it's the privilege that's been given and the honor that's been given. Okay. So if you had seen when the unjust shall be in the agonies, just to kind of mention on that, I was going to talk about it later, but I'll mention it now. Illness, and we spoke about this last week, illness is a blessing, especially if it's a kind of illness that is like a, what you call a fatal illness, like cancer, etc. You know you're going to die. My teacher described this guy who was a bodybuilder, and he was not practicing, etc. And then he learned he got cancer, and that's he kind of wasted away. But he started practicing. Okay, he started practicing, and for them, they know that they're about to die. They're more privileged. Their eyes are wide open compared to us. We also know we're going to die. They kind of know they're going to die, but they almost see it coming now. We kind of think that it's going to take a while. You know, I'm going to get old, sitting on my comfortable chair, and I'm going to pass away, kind of eyes closed like that. We don't know when it's going to happen. Okay, so just be prepared for it all the time. Remember death all the time. If you had seen when the unjust shall be in the agonies of death, and the angels shall spread forth their hands, give up your souls. Today shall you be recompensed with ignominious chastisement, because you spoke against Allah other than the truth, and because you showed pride against his communications. When death approaches the non-believers, they fall in a state desperation and distress. The angels strike them and say harshly, let your souls be removed. Okay, the state of disbelievers. Both the disbelievers and sinful beg for Allah's permission to return to the earth to recompense for what they have done. So when they realize this is it, they ask for, you know, they're begging, give me one more chance, let me go back to earth. I'll sort myself out now, but it's too late now. Okay. Okay, now we're going to move on to what today was meant to be about, 20 minutes into the lesson, like I do my style. The intermediate realm, the kind of from in between. So barzakh. Barzakh is, it's mentioned in the Quran a few times, the barzakh. Barzakh is, like I mentioned, a few of the meanings, but it's actually known as a barrier. So when you mention the Quran, it's talk about a barrier. So you can see it as two things. You can see it as a barrier between dunya and I suppose Judgment Day or the hereafter, or you can also see it as a connection between the two. Okay. So barzakh exists between two things. What is meant by barzakh in the above mentioned verse? The verse is, for behind and they shall cry therein. Sorry, for behind those who leave the world there is a barrier of death, until the day when all will be raised from the dead. Okay, what I mean here is that transfer to after death, and therein it will remain till the resurrection. Therefore, barzakh exists between this world and the hereafter. Okay, so when we talk about barzakh, we talk about barzakh is a word in terms of there's no good or bad meaning for it. Barzakh is an actual realm, so a immediate realm, that's what it is. Okay, and it occurs from death to when the trumpet is sounded. So the third life extends. I'm just going to read a bit from Life of Man, which explains quite nicely. The third life extends from the time a man leaves the dunya at death until the moment he rises from his grave at the blowing of the horn. This is the intermediate realm, barzakh. God the Exalted has said, and behind them is a barzakh until the day when they are raised, the one I just quoted there. When a Muslim dies and his death is confirmed, he has to be prepared for the grave. Okay. Then he must be washed, shrouded, and prayed over janazah, all of which must be done according to the prophetic sunnah. Well, I won't go into doing because I'm going to be spoiling a bit there. There's two you can call worlds in barzakh. There's Iliyin and there's Sijjin. Okay, Iliyin is the abode for the righteous in the barzakh, and Sijjin is the abode for the unrighteous in barzakh. Okay, so those are the two, Iliyin and Sijjin. Those are the two kind of you call realms that when you're in barzakh, between your death up to the resurrection, you're in one of those two worlds. Okay, pretty much all of us will be in barzakh. Well, let me rephrase that. All of us are going to be in barzakh for a while. The only ones that are going to be for very small time are those that will die when the horn is blown. And that's only going to be disbelievers. So we'll talk about that when we reach that. So at that point, there's only going to be disbelievers when the horn is blown. All the believers will have died by then. Okay. So there are people now in the barzakh waiting for Judgment Day. That's the whole point of it. So there's no way we can experience barzakh. So we can't really conceptualize it. We can't experience it. We can't. So where do we get the information from? Scripturally, we get a few things, and I'll mention it in the hadith where we cover, etc. But generally speaking, it comes about from stories from dreams, from the righteous that have had dreams, or those that have suffering as well had these dreams. That's where you get that from, the information from, as much as possible. Okay. Just as we mentioned about barzakh being a kind of barrier, the same way as we talk about paradise. So the word Jannah means to kind of wall off, so or cover over. So jinn, same root, is to cover over. As paradise, Jannah means the walled off garden. So this is walled off. No one can enter unless they're given permission for it. So the hadith, the grave is either one of the gardens of paradise or it is one of the pits of hell. So when the soul leaves the body, two angels raise the soul. He will be called by the best of names. If it was a good nickname, then he'll be called by that. So like names you give each other now. If it's a good name, you'll be called by that. If it's a bad name, when my teacher was going through this, he goes, I met this young kid around my street, and I go, what's your name? He goes, my name's Thunder. Where that come from? But yeah, his name's Thunder, so he's going to be known as Thunder. So you got to think about what names you got, because you're going to be called by those names. Okay, so a bad person will be called by the wretched name. A righteous person, give them good names. What's good is that when someone passes away, it's good to talk good about them. Okay, don't overdo it where it becomes a lie, but talk good about them. The likelihood that it will help them. Okay, so the soul leaves. Two angels raise the soul. The veil will be lifted at this point. So at this point, the veil will be lifted, so you can see the other realm. You can see angels doing whatever they're doing. You can see everything. Okay. For us, what's important is that you're going to understand is that for us, it's hard to understand this. The words we use are worldly words, and we're trying to relate them to a different so-called world. So it's hard to understand that, but still kind of widen your imagination. Let it flow. So the angels take you to Jerusalem. So when a person passed away, as soon as a person passes away, and I described last week how the soul is taken, then the soul is then taken to Jerusalem. So there's only one entry point to the other realm, the other realm that we're talking about. Okay, there's only one entry point. There's that, Jerusalem. How did the Prophet ﷺ go through the heavens? And he met the prophets, etc. Where did he go? Jerusalem. Okay, that's your kind of gateway. That's your staircase to the heavens and to meet your Lord. So the soul is taken there. At this point, what's happening? So the soul is taken there through the entry point, and the righteous actually is taken, and the righteous. Some scholars say that the righteous actually meet the prophets as they're going. You meet your Lord. Again, meeting your Lord, we don't know in what sense this point is, because we know that we're going to meet our Lord in paradise, and that's going to be an amazing thing for us. So this point, it could mean anything. Okay. At this point, what's happening to your body, your physical body? Your physical body is being washed, showered, etc. Your soul still has some kind of connection back to your body, but it's gone off. The same thing as, when you go to sleep, that's the closest you are to death when you go to sleep. Because when you go to sleep, your soul, that's why when we read the dua, we're reading the dua, and even when we're waking up, is that we're grateful the fact that we've woken from death, because sleep is actually a mini death where your soul leaves your body. There's still some kind of connection to it, but it goes off. So to give Dishkim, because they talk about being gentle with the body. They talk about gentle with the body, and the reason why I'm laughing is because the example my teacher gave was that, because they said, well, how is it the soul's gone, the body's dead, and why would he feel anything? They said, look, sleep is like a mini death, and when you're sleeping, you're kind of gone off somewhere, aren't you? If someone comes and slaps you, what happens? You won't be asleep, and you'll kind of wake up, but you'll feel it, won't you? But the case is that there's still kind of connection, so you need to be gentle with the body, shape, form. Okay, so off they go, and they come back. Entry point there. So that's the connection point from this world to the celestial realm. Know the way to get there. So that's the only way of getting there. Okay. So the soul returns. The soul returns once the person is buried. There's different interpretations you can take from this, because the Prophet ﷺ says, don't delay the burial, because the soul is waiting anxiously. So what do we know? We don't know what's happened. So the soul has taken its journey, whatever it is. Now we don't know what's happening to the soul. It's just waiting, and it goes back into the body once you bury the person. And so that's important. That's why I said don't delay it. Do it as much as possible, as quickly as possible. So when you obviously, we know when you bury a person, when you dig the grave, ideally speaking, you should be digging in an L shape so that it doesn't collapse. But nowadays they don't really do it, and ideally you should be burying them without a coffin or nothing. This is straight to the earth. But again, you have flooding here, whatever it is, this and that. If you're going to put them in a coffin, at least be a coffin that's going to eventually, I suppose, deteriorate, and you become part of the earth, not one that's going to last millions of years. Okay, that was kind of the opinion of my teacher. So you bury them. Actually, I'm going to read it off here because it mentions it quite nicely there. Okay, so his relative, neighbors, and friends must be informed, and also the people of goodness and virtue, so that they may pray and ask mercy for him and attend his funeral. Remember, attending a funeral is community obligation. So at least someone in the community must attend it. Okay, if they don't, then all the community is sinning. It is recommended that whoever is informed of the death of his brother Muslim should say, "We are God, and to him we should inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi raji'un." Why we say this? Obviously, we're following this. And then, oh God, place his records in Illiyin. Illiyin, again, it's a place, and it's also a record of good, almost like a record keeping of good. Record him as a man of excellence. Provide a successor for him in caring for his family, and forgive us and him, O Lord of the worlds. Next, one can praise some more for him and praise him as a good man. For the Prophet has said, may blessings and peace be upon him. Mention the goodness of your dead and refrain from mentioning their wickedness. And there is another hadith with the sense that you are God's witnesses on earth. Those whom you praise will be thus are you praiseworthy. However, exaggerated praise bordering on or actually becoming lies are to be avoided. Okay, much reward lies in escorting funerals, praying for the dead, and attending their burial. In a Sahih hadith, it is said, anyone who escorts the funeral procession of a Muslim until he prays for him shall receive one measure of the reward. If he remains until he is buried, he receives two measures, and each measure is the size of Mount Uhud. Guys, who have been obviously Medina, you got a big mountain, the back. That's Mount Uhud. And it has been said that whenever someone escorts the funeral of his brother Muslim, God orders the angel to escort his own funeral and pray over him when he dies. It is recommended that people who have died be moved quickly to their graves. When a funeral procession is ready and the men lift him up, if the person had been righteous, it says, advance, advance. So he's eager. He's eager to kind of run. If, however, the dead person had been otherwise, it would say, woe is me. Where are you taking me? The hadith make haste with the funeral procession. If he had been righteous, you are taking him onto goodness, whereas if he had been otherwise, it is an evil which you will unload from your necks. The dead person perceives and is aware of those who wash, shroud, and bury him. So the dead person knows what's happening around him. The dead, and this is clear, this comes from hadith here we're talking about. It has been said that his spirit is held by an angel who stands near him and walks with it in his funeral, so that he hears all that is said about him, whether good or evil. Okay, I'm going to quickly mention this part because he's talking about burial and it's good part. Then I'll carry on with my normal stuff. When he is laid out in his grave, it is recommended that those who put him there say, in the name of God and according to the religion of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It is also recommended that those who are near the grave put 3 handfuls of dust on it, saying with the first, from it did we create you, with the second, to it shall we return you, and with the third, and from it shall we bring you forth another time. This is Surah 20, verse 55. Then dust should be very, very gradually and gently poured over him until the grave is filled, after which the people present should remain for a while reading Quran and asking for forgiveness. Okay, so this is when the contest part comes. So you buried the person, and there were many righteous, and the people of old, they would dig graves and actually lie in their graves to get that feeling of this is our final destination. Make you have that feeling, remembrance of death. So when you bury the deceased, it's recommended. It's a weak hadith. It's a weak hadith, but I'm going to mention it. And Imam Nawawi, a lot of them say that you should still do it, because remember, when it's for something good, you can take weak hadith. The only time you can't take weak hadith is for a ruling. After after a person is buried, people should stay after the burial and call the person's name, saying son, and mention his mother's name, not his father's name, mention his mother's name, and answer the question. So answer, when Munkar Nakir hold hands and say, so you're there, say out loud, call the person's name, son of, mention the mother's name, and then the questions, who is your Lord, what is your religion, and what do you say about this person, the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Answer the questions. So weak hadith answer questions, but the weak hadith then states that on hearing this, Munkar and Nakir hold and say, you know what, there's nothing for us to be done here, because the question has already been answered. And that's it, they're off they go. So there's a chance that a person may get kind of succeed or may get saved from all that torment. So look, it comes down to it, there's no harm. You're going to get a reward by sitting there and whatever prayer you do. So you sit there and you say that you go through that process, okay? And inshallah, if God wills that they get successful in that, then that's, what more do you want, okay? Next is actually the squeezing of the grave. So this happens to both good and bad souls, the squeezing of the grave. And the Prophet ﷺ said that no soul, no human can avoid the squeezing of the grave. If there was anyone that could, it would have been Sa'd bin Ibn Mu'adh, who basically, he was a tremendous person, and when he passed away, the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that shook. Even he did not kind of avoid the squeezing of the grave. So the way the squeezing of the grave is, for a wretched soul, it's out of here, nothing comes out of the mouth. So the squeezing is like, you squeeze so much that your ribs crack. That's how the grave it squeezes. For a righteous person, you can, the description that's given is when you got a mother who's trying to grab their child who's running around being a menace, kind of give them milk or whatever it is, and you grab them, and to stop them from leaving you, then you grab them and you squeeze them a bit. It's not like squeezing them to hurt them, you're just squeezing them to kind of strain them. That's the squeezing that will be for a righteous person. But the squeezing will take place. After the squeezing, that's when the angels come. Okay? Munkar and Nakir. And the way the description is, and it's given in this way, is that when people are leaving, so the deceased can hear the footsteps of people that have come to bury him leaving. And when they're leaving, so their footsteps, they're leaving, the angels are coming. All right? So just imagine that. This is, imagine the fact that how lonely that person is going to be feeling. His friends, family, everything is just leaving him. He's there all alone now. Okay? When the daughter of the Prophet ﷺ, I think it was Kulthum, passed away. The Prophet ﷺ said to them when they have to go straight after doing ghusl, let me know. And then they told the Prophet ﷺ, and he went inside, and then he came outside with his arm, which is your lower garment, and it was still warm. And he said, wrap it in this. And then he cried over it, and that's when the Sahaba would say, "Oh Prophet, you're crying." He said, "No, this is mercy." So remember, you're gonna, if you keep everything inside you, you don't let out that the tears, etc. You're doing harm to yourself. So the mercy is for you to cry, okay? And then the Prophet ﷺ smiled because obviously she was kind of successful. But the idea here was that this was for his daughter not to feel lonely. The warmth, close of the Prophet ﷺ, she could feel that still, and know that her father is still with her, okay? And that was the idea behind this. So Munkar and Nakir come, they're the questioners, and some say that the righteous, the ones that come for the righteous are Bashir and Mubashir, but there's a difference of opinion on that. Okay. I'm just going to quickly read a bit on this then. The angels, the names of the angels that will question one in his grave, Munkar and Nakir. They are of black and blue color and large in size. Allah's Messenger ﷺ said, when the dead body of a Muslim is buried in the grave, there appear before him two angels, both having black faces and blue eyes. One is called Munkar and the other is called Nakir. And they say what you have to say about this person. And he will say, he is the servant of Allah and his messenger. I bear testimony to the fact that there is no God but Allah, and that Muhammad ﷺ is his messenger. And they both will say, we already knew that you would say this. Then his grave will be expanded to the extent of 4,900 square cubic feet, and it will be illuminated. Then it will be said to him, go to sleep. And he will say, I intend to go to my family in order to inform them. And they will say, go to sleep, like the sleep of a newly wedded bride, whom no one awakens but one who is dearest to her amongst his family members. Only Allah would resurrect him from his resting place. If he, the dead, were a hypocrite, he will say, I heard people making a statement pertaining to the oneness of Allah and the Messenger of Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And I said the same, but I do not know. And they would say, we already knew that you would say this. And the earth will be told to press him, and it will press him till his ribs are clasped together, and he will not be relieved of the torment till Allah resurrects him from his resting place. Okay, so the questioning. So let's talk a bit about the questioning. And first of all, let's talk about the wretched soul. So those are the things. So they're going to ask him the question and say, the normal question. And some narrations is that they actually answer the first one about the Lord. But they're unsure and they're in so much fear. They're just like, like how it's like someone will just ask you what's your name, and you're just like in so much fear you can't even mention your name. That's the state they will be in a real bad state. It won't come out of the mouth. And they said, we already knew that was going to happen. Okay. And he's going to get punished. When it comes to the righteous, actually, soul, he's gonna obviously answer the questions. So it's going to be your Lord, your religion, and then the Prophet ﷺ will be brought in front. Okay. Yeah, Marabuka, Madinuka, and then the Prophet ﷺ is going to be brought in front. And actually, the scholars say, I think Imam Suti says that the Prophet ﷺ body will actually come himself into the grave. Okay. I was mentioning about that brother who had cancer, the bodybuilder, and I didn't tell the full story because it actually linked into this one. So I've got it all in the mind somewhere. It fits in. So this brother actually, it was Sheikh Yasin, I think so, that saw the brother and he asked, "How are you?" He looked good. Because I'm fine. He goes, I'm happy. Because why? Because I had a dream. And the Prophet ﷺ came to my dream and said, "Don't worry, I'll be there to hold your hand in the grave questioning." Okay, this is from a random. This is like, we're talking about in our time, these kind of stories coming about. So there's many narrations, obviously, and there's talk of that the Prophet ﷺ actually comes himself, and this is kind of reassuring for us that there's an opportunity for intercession for us in the grave as well. Okay, from the Prophet ﷺ. So what the funny one, I'll have to try a bit here. Say the Umar. Say the Umar asked the Prophet ﷺ, "Will I have my mind? So will I know what's going on?" So it's not a matter of I'll die, I'm in the grave, and then it's a complete different world, and it's not going to be me, whatever it is. And the Prophet ﷺ said, "Yes, you'll have your intellect. You'll have your intellect. You'll be you, Umar. You'll have your intellect." He goes, "Okay, that's fine then. I'll sort him out then." I got no worry. This is Sayyid Umar, the confidence Sayyid Umar. It was amazing, mashallah, Sayyid Umar. This is a story. Like, remember, this is a story, and it's good to say these stories in terms of you come out with some good. There's no way of verifying stuff like this because it's not a hadith, for example. There's not enough authentication kind of taken place or critique taken place in that. So Sayyid Umar comes to the dream of one of the, and they ask him, "Oh, how are you?" And fine, and what happened? And he says, "Yeah, no problem." Because they say that when the Munkar and Nakir came, the angels came asking him, "Who's your Lord?" He turned and said, "Who's your Lord?" Yeah, he kind of turned it back onto them, "Who's your Lord?" And they're just shocked. They don't know what to do. Remember, saying that Umar is the one, and the reason we say that Umar is the one, and the narration is clear that there's no two ways about it, that if he's going down on one route, the devil will change his route. The devil will not go on the same route or kind of come in front of, say, the Umar. If he's got, like to say, it's like for our age, you're going down one side of the street. If someone doesn't want to come across you or counter you, they'll cross over and they'll go across the street. And that was the case when, say, the Umar, even the devil would not come in front of him. He was scared of him. Okay? So this was about Sayyid Umar, but the questioning in terms of the righteous person, when they succeed, and some say actually that questioning to some extent for the righteous is going to be probably a bit worse than for righteous, unrighteous, because the angels will continuously ask the question. They continuously want to ask the question. Sorry, there's one thing I missed out. I just remembered. I said this in there somewhere. It's in there somewhere. It takes time to come out. When you're first brought, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to make it seem like it's Maghrib time. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to make it seem like it's Maghrib time. So the righteous person is going to say, "Wait, let me pray." It's gone. The righteous person is going to say, "Wait, it's Maghrib time. Let me pray my Maghrib." And they're going to say, No. It's time for questioning. But what you learn from this is that really the fact that, we always say, look, the prayer is going to be the first thing that can be questioned on. Well, this is kind of what it's about. That's your kind of first test. If you never prayed, how are you going to know it's Maghrib time? How are you going to know it's Maghrib time? Okay? So prayer is so important. I think it was Sayyidina Ibn Abbas who later on in life was blinded, and they said that, "Oh, we can cure you with this, but you'll have to kind of, 2 days you can't do anything." And he said, "No, I don't want to miss my prayer, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not meet, or he's not happy with those that miss prayer." At that age. So this is it. It's like the prayer it's amazing. You guys should be very strict on your prayer, if possible. So going back to the righteous person, and after the questioning and all that, he's going to be tried a few times, but then eventually Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, leave my servant. He's been successful. There's two positions here in terms of what happens is there's torment for the person, wretched person, and there's kind of almost like abode or kind of paradise for that passes away. The person who's answered the question, the righteous person, he's so happy and overjoyed. He says, oh, let me go and tell my family. Let me go. He gets up. Let me go and tell my family. And as I mentioned in the hadith there, and the angels say, no, calm down. You can't go back. You can't go back. So he's that excited. He just feels like, yeah, I can just go off and tell my family. It's not a problem whatsoever. Because when you come for the questioning, you're kind of seated up. You're not lying down. You're seated up. You're not cross-legged, like I'm sitting there. That's how you are in the grave. You're seated up, and that's when the questioning takes place on that. Okay. For the righteous, the door or a window will open, showing paradise. And some is that window will open and then close, but then the whole area will become green and like a garden for him. For the wretched soul, a window will open beneath him of hellfire, and it will remain open. Okay, there's a position of scholars that there's actually two Jahannams. There's like a mini Jahannam, and then you got the main Jahannam. The mini Jahannam is actually one of the position of the scholars is the center, the crust of earth, the core. That's the mini Jahannam. Okay, and the proof he kind of gave it because there's a hadith of fire was lit and it would burn for 20,000 years and it turned red. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala burned it for further 20,000 years and it turned white. And then it was burnt for a further 20,000 years and it turned black. And then this scholar kind of did the calculation and said this, and he kind of matched it up to the crust of the center, the core of earth, and said that this is the mini Jahannam. Remember, Jahannam is going to be black, pitch black. When we move on to Judgment Day, I'll describe a bit more. So the main Jahannam is actually a world. Okay, we've got this mind of even when it comes to heavens, we've got this mind of a layered cake. So you got one layer, and on top of that, you're another layer. On top of that, you're another layer. No, it's not like that. Yeah, these are kind of worlds that we're talking about. But inshallah, we'll describe it a bit more a bit later. Okay. So there is actually a position. I know I mentioned that there's actually a fourth question that's asked. And the fourth question is about how did you come to know about this? So knowledge is important. So, how do you come to know about this? So practice without knowledge is dangerous. Okay. And the person will say, look, I read the Quran and I practiced it. That's why I get to know about this. Some say actually that the questioning may take place in your own language. Okay. The language of paradise will be Arabic. Not that, but something in the grave, the language can take place in your own language as well. Like, for example, for us, it's English. Okay. So what attacks the person in the grave? So the monsters even try to attack the good souls, but it's protected. One of the things that is deprived so much or missed out so much is Surah Mulk. Reading Surah Mulk every night before going to sleep is very important. It's 2.5, 3 pages to memorize. It should be quite easy for people to memorize as well. Because that turns into human, that protects you. Surah Mulk protects you in the grave. So don't miss out on that opportunity of that. Yeah. So read Surah Mulk in person. One thing, because there's this discussion that takes place about, is it actually you have physical punishment in the grave, or is it just your spirit that getting punished? Okay. Because the thinking here is that if it was about the physical punishment only, then don't get buried. You won't feel anything. There's an example of, I think it's Lenin in Russia. Russia, there's this, I think his name's Lenin. He hasn't been buried. He's there on display. They've kind of preserved his body in some museum. So you guys can kind of Google it. It's Lenin, I think it's called, in Russia, something like that. And his body is there preserved. So I'm thinking, well, he must be getting punished. So if it was physical punishing of the body, then why isn't his body being punished? So it's not about that. It's not like that. People are not physically punished, but people who are not physically placed beneath earth still feel the barzakh. So they still feel that happening, because you won't find their body, will they? I don't know, after sea or whatever it is, kind of thing. You never will find the body, and you never bury them. So barzakh is a real existence with some sort of physicality that we are unable to understand beyond our ability. Okay. The best way to probably describe it is you have a physical experience, but not for the physical body. You feel everything. Okay. You feel everything. When the wretched soul, you have an angel who will be smacking your head. Okay, really with a real heavy one, he'll smack your head and you'll turn into dust. And then you'll get recreated, and then it'll smack you again, and your screams can be heard by everyone. So in the hadith, that the screams of those that are being tortured are heard by everyone but humans. Jinn, animals, and all, they hear the person that's being punished in their grave. Okay, it's only us humans that cannot hear it. What also is important is that from one side, you've got people going too much on the spiritual side. Some say that it's just about spirituality, and Imam Ghazali actually writes about them, and he kind of curses them, and he says that they've gone out of the fold of Islam. That's the extent he goes through. If you feel it's just a spiritual thing, then you got the other side where people are too about the what you call Muslim philosophy that talk about everything being nothing but, well, the other aspect of it. How does this describe? Yeah, I think you could probably see pictures or videos that are sent normally from South Asia, etc., of a grave is on fire. So look at this person is getting punished, or a snake coming out the grave. That's got nothing to do with it. Okay, there's nothing to do with it, because if that was a cave, like I said, I gave the example of Lenin in Russia. He's on display for everyone. He's a non-Muslim. Okay, he's going to be being punished. So why isn't his body kind of on fire, or why isn't the place around him on fire, etc.? So that's got nothing to do with it. You got to find the right kind of balance between these things. So it's a few points then. So I mentioned about Sayyidina Usman, who would weep more when reminded about grave than hell. The Prophet ﷺ would seek refuge from grave than hell, as it's the first stage of afterlife. If saved here, later it would become easier. From the point you pass away to the point you're buried, you are effectively locked out of your body. You are aware of what is going on around you, but powerless to do anything. If people are adjusting your body about, you will think, what are they doing? If people are treating you well, you will be happy, etc. Okay. So just as we understand the difference between physical pain and emotional pain, same way there is a difference between the physical experience of life in grave and spiritual experience of life in grave. It's just that it's not occurring as far as we know to the atoms that make up our physical body. So you have a physical experience, but it doesn't occur to the physical body. So I've mentioned that before. Okay, we got 5 minutes, so I'm going to quickly just talk about a few things. The soul of deceased may come to you in your dreams. This is not a kind of herald of your death necessarily. It may be there to comfort you. So, it's like you've seen someone who's passed away and they come to you in your dream, right? You're thinking, yeah, that's a sign. My time's up. That's not necessarily the case, okay? Don't read too much into it. But many deceased come into the dreams, and there's so many, it comes down to dream interpretation, etc. There's a lot of things to think. Okay. A question that a lot of you must have on your mind is ghost. So do ghosts exist? Nothing scriptural about this. However, we do know that souls are allowed to wander around and even contact the living. Even the unrighteous are sometimes allowed. So what happens is that, when we talked about the Illiyin and Sijil. So Sijil is the kind of the wretched souls. Illiyin is where all the good souls get together. And they ask about each other. They ask about what happened to this person and what happened to this person, etc. And if he can't be found, they're saying, okay, he must be in Sijil, etc. So the kind of explanation that's been given, so you get this, what's it called, is it haunted house and stuff like that, where they do programs and, it's creepy and this door's moved and something like that. Remember I spoke about a few weeks back, everyone's got a jinn green. Everyone got a jinn green, yeah? So your jinn green, every single person has a jinn green. born with you, and some say it kind of develops from your stomach, and it grows up with you. And his one job is your nafs. He's just whispering away to you. He hates you. Even the Prophet ﷺ had a jinn qareen, but he was so powerful. The Prophet ﷺ was so powerful. He overcame the jinn qareen and turned it into a Muslim. When you die, your jinn qareen still lives. So this kind of have a calling. I'm going to call your soul, and they're going to, when these people, you go to them and the family, I need to call the soul because there's X amount of inheritance that we don't know where it is. So can you call them over? Tell us where it is. That could be the jinn qareen that's been called over, because the jinn qareen's lived with you all your life. He knows everything about you. So the explanation of this haunted and this, encounters, these kind of nominal encounters, paranormal encounters, that would be more than likely be jinn qareen rather than actual soul. It's possible, like I said, souls are allowed to wander around. So it could happen, but that's the kind of the explanation. There's nothing scriptural that kind of defines that. Any questions? Time up, and I haven't. I think I got halfway through. Go on then.
No, but you said about when burying. Is it important for them to be buried in a coffin or not? Does it not matter?
So,
and again about the lid or no lid.
Yeah, no. There's the recommendation is that it should be you're going straight to the soil. So ideally speaking, without the coffin. Okay. There may be, I think, in this country, there might be some restriction that you have to use a coffin. Okay. I don't know that for definite, because I know in Darlaston, I remember when it's in Darlaston, they kind of agreed with the council and they accepted that you don't have to put a coffin in. But I don't think everyone else is the same there. But the recommendation is yes, it's without a coffin, because it should be straight to burial to the soil, with the soil. And I think that's probably what it is about lifting the lid, etc. Yeah. If it's a matter of lifting the lid so then the angels can come and question you, then it can be. That's not the case. That's not the case. Like I said, there's a kind of difference there. You're not going to physically kind of get up in the sense, there's that.
And also you said about when in the grave, for the righteous there's the Jannah, and for the unrighteous there's the Jahannam. Is this when they're being questioned, or is this when they're waiting for?
So this is after they're successful. So when they have the questioning? After the questioning, those that are successful, a window will show them paradise, and those that are unsuccessful, a window will show them hellfire. But the paradise one, the narration that closes up, so it just opens up to show and closes. Whereas the hellfire, that remains open. That window remains open. So they're going to be tormented throughout. And I just explained that an angel specifically smacks the person and they shatter into dust, and then they're recreated again. I'm gonna next week, inshallah, I'll give a bit more description about punishment in the grave, and kind of finish off the rest of it, leading up to the blowing of the horn. Because as I thought, I won't be able to finish it. What I'll also do next week is I'll mention about some narrations from Imam Ghazali that go through some hadith. Any other questions before we finish up?
Here they have a certain lease extension. We hear about in Saudi Arabia that they're basically taking over it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I mean, it is whatever it is. I mean, because more likely what's going to happen is that your body's going to deteriorate anyway. It's only prophets and the righteous, etc. Their bodies are kept. Everyone else is kind of just that. They speak about that one bone that remains. And that's what's going to happen. That one bone that remains in the lower back, when it starts raining, you're going to grow from that like a plant grows. And that's how you're going to rise on Judgment Day. But we'll cover that when we cover Judgment Day. But yeah, that's the case. You can't do anything about it, really. I suppose that's probably why some want to get buried abroad. That's another question. Should we be taking people getting buried abroad? That's what. Yeah, that's it. So you shouldn't be delaying the. Some scholars they put it down as makruh tahriman up to that extent. But then some give the reasoning because of the body decaying, and that's really bad for the body. But whereas now, day and age, the way it's kept, etc., it probably doesn't decay as much. Is that justifiable enough? Well, it's up for debate. But majority, feel that they want to get buried abroad, i.e., you got none of this issue of leasing. They'll kind of graves dug in the proper way. Someone's going to walk past it every day and they're going to do dua for them. Because also I'm going to touch upon is that how we can benefit the dead, or can the dead benefit us? These kind of so-called controversial questions. So we'll touch upon that as well. Yeah, we'll do that next week because we've overrun like usual, and there's a bit of attendance, and I don't want to overrun and put people off. I want to see them again. Okay, leave it at that. Jazakallah khair. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun. Wa salamun ala al-mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Bi rahmatihi. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.